When it comes to underrated matchups in the Android saga, one that often slips under the radar is Kami Fuse Piccolo versus Android 18, a battle that never happened but could have drastically shifted the tide if it did. At this point in the story, Piccolo had just fused with Kami, regaining his identity as the original Namekian. This fusion wasn't just symbolic, it massively increased his power, putting him on par with or even above Android 17, at least temporarily. His ki becomes calm, redefined, and overwhelmingly potent. The Z fighters immediately notice the difference. Piccolo is no longer just a powerful warrior, he's a strategic monster with the experience of a god and the fighting instincts of a demon. On the other side, we have Android 18. Cool, calculating, and effortlessly strong. Built by Dr. Gero to kill Goku, she easily dismantles Super Saiyan Vegeta without breaking a sweat. Her power is limitless due to her infinite energy reactor, meaning she can sustain full outputs for hours, while most organic fighters would burn out. So what happens when you put the new god-enhanced Piccolo against the unstoppable energy of Android 18? Is tactical genius and Namekian versatility enough to overwhelm the raw mechanical endurance? Let's find out. If you enjoy conversations like this and want to take part in deeper Dragon Ball discussions, I highly encourage you to join the Dragon Ball HQ Discord server, link below in the description. We'll be diving into more in this topic over there. Now without further delay, let's begin. To really understand how far Piccolo had come by the time he fought Android 17, and potentially could have fought Android 18, we need to rewind all the way back to the Namek saga. At that point in the series, Piccolo was clearly outclassed by both Goku and Vegeta. The Super Saiyan transformation had created a powerful gulf that seemed unsurmountable. However, what's often overlooked is how much ground Piccolo manages to cover during the 3-year time skip leading up to the android's arrival. During that period, Piccolo trains extensively, even sparring with Super Saiyan Goku, which is a huge deal considering where he stood before. This isn't a training session out of pity. Piccolo is strong enough to serve as a legitimate sparring partner for Goku, who at this point has unlocked the full might of the Super Saiyan form. That alone speaks volumes about how much Piccolo had improved even before any sort of fusion. Fast forward to the arrival of androids 19 and 20 and we get an even clearer picture. Goku and Vegeta both treat the androids seriously enough to engage them in their Super Saiyan forms. Goku in particular chooses to go Super Saiyan almost immediately when facing Android 19. This decision implies that his base form isn't enough to deal with the threat. Vegeta also doesn't take any chances when he arrives and uses his Super Saiyan form to demolish Android 19. Now contrast that with Piccolo's performance against Android 20. Not only does Piccolo confront Android 20 without transforming, since he doesn't even have a transformation in the traditional sense, but he completely dominates the fight. And it's worth noting that this version of Android 20 had already absorbed ki from both Vegeta's blast and a sneak attack on Piccolo himself, giving him a noticeable boost. Despite that, Piccolo wipes the floor with him, showing just how far he had come. What makes this especially significant is that this beatdown takes place before Piccolo fuses with Kami. He was already in the same ballpark as Super Saiyan tier fighters even before unlocking his full potential. The fusion only compounds his progress, elevating him to a point where he can stand toe-to-toe with the android duo. Android 17 and 18, originally known as Lapis and Lazuli, are two of the most iconic and unique antagonists introduced in Dragon Ball Z's Android saga. Unlike their predecessors, 19 and 20, who were fully mechanical, 17 and 18 are cybernetically enhanced humans, a crucial distinction that directly affects both of their personalities and combat appearances. This hybrid nature gives them limitless energy and stamina without sacrificing human thought, emotion, or intuition. Their creation by Dr. Gero marked a turning point in the Red Ribbon Army's technology, turning them into autonomous, independent fighters rather than obedient machines. From a character standpoint, 17 and 18 are very different despite being twins. Android 17 is cold, cocky, and confident. He's extremely intelligent, often sarcastic, and thrives on testing himself in combat, even if it means defying orders. He relishes the idea of a challenge, which is why he eagerly accepts Piccolo's proposal to fight alone, rather than ganging up on him with 18. His rebellious nature was so strong that he eventually killed Dr. Gero, the very scientist who created him, showing his complete disregard for authority and proving that he's not a puppet but a free-thinking being. Android 18 in contrast is more calm and composed, often keeping her emotions in check. While she also shares 17's rebellious spirit, she tends to be more calculating and less eager to fight for the sake of it. Her character is less overtly violent, though she's still incredibly confident in her power. One of the most memorable examples of this is her effortless destruction of Super Saiyan Vegeta, snapping his arm in a matter of seconds while still holding back. What makes this moment even more impressive is that she treats the whole affair like a casual workout, barely breaking a sweat, while Vegeta is left humiliated. In terms of power, both androids are immensely strong, however it's clearly stated in the original manga that 17 is the stronger of the two despite their relative closeness. A fight between Kami Fuse Piccolo and Android 18 is one of the more overlooked matchups in the Android saga. After fusing with Kami, Piccolo's power undergoes a massive transformation. He's no longer just a strong fighter, he's someone who immediately rivals the androids as acknowledged directly in the series. Although it's confirmed in the manga that Android 17 is stronger than 18, the fact that Piccolo is able to stand his ground against 17 so well tells us a lot about how he might have fared against her. During the fight with 17, both combatants explicitly acknowledge how close they are in power. Android 17 himself says that they're evenly matched, even though he knows he'll win in the long run due to his infinite stamina. Even 18, watching the fight unfold, warns 17 not to underestimate Piccolo, suggesting that she fully understands how dangerous he is, maybe even relative to herself. That kind of statement doesn't come lightly, especially from someone who's aware of her own power and her brother's full capabilities. Despite the clear stamina advantage the androids have, there are subtle cues in the 17 vs Piccolo fight that imply Piccolo might have been just slightly stronger, at least in terms of relative offensive power. One of the best examples is when Piccolo uses Hellzone Grenade. 17 puts up a barrier, something he doesn't always do, and afterwards remarks that Piccolo was so close to winning, at least in the manga. That may sound like casual banter, but considering 17's generally confident demeanor and his ability to tank most attacks, it might indicate that the attack posed a legitimate threat. It shows us that Piccolo had enough raw firepower to potentially end the fight if 17 didn't defend in time. What's more telling is how 17 reacts to Light Grenade during the later Cell encounter. He doesn't even try to block it with his barrier, instead he dodges it. This is a significant shift in behavior from a character who previously trusted his shield against most attacks. According to one official guidebook, 17's barrier has to emit double the energy of whatever he's trying to block. If you take that statement seriously, it suggests that Light Grenade was either too powerful or too risky for 17 to shield against, forcing him to rely on evasive maneuvers instead. Even if we don't accept that guidebook statement as absolute fact, the fact that 17 instinctively chose to dodge rather than tank still reinforces the idea that Piccolo's key-based attacks had become genuinely threatening. And if you think about it, it makes sense why Piccolo didn't use Light Grenade in the fight between him and 17, because originally, once he's seen the barrier, he probably thought most Ki blasts would be obsolete, and he had to fight with just hand-to-hand combat, in which, when him and 17 did, they were relatively even. Though with the techniques that Piccolo has in his arsenal to multiply his power greatly, it's very likely that he actually was stronger than 17 in all reality. Now take all of that and apply it to Android 18, who doesn't actually have a barrier. She's durable, sure, and has unlimited stamina, but she doesn't have the same defensive flexibility that her brother does. That could be a major disadvantage against a fighter like Piccolo, whose strength lies in not just his physical power, but in his creativity and technical arsenal. Techniques like Hellzone Grenade, Light Grenade, and his ability to fight strategically from range could give him an upper hand, especially if he's able to catch her off guard or pin her down. Being the fact that 17 is stronger than 18 and Piccolo and 17 are stated to be equals, he should be stronger than 18 in terms of power. 17's acknowledgement of Piccolo being an equal matter even more since he stated plenty of times in the past that he's the strongest. These are statements that 18 doesn't ever deny when it's said right in front of her. As long as Piccolo doesn't play around, he should beat her pretty decisively. One Light Grenade should be enough to do the job, if not the same Hellzone Grenade he used against 17, but without a barrier, Android 18 will more than likely be toast, making this matchup not even close.